Welcome to Italian Design Day Turkey 2020. We are on Design Education panel and I have 4 precious guests in Turkey and also in Italy. As you know, Italian Design Day is organized in cooperation with Istanbul General Consulate of Italy, Yıldız Technical University, Yıldız Technopark and Italian Culture Center. One of my precious guests is Professor Carlo Branzaglia from Yacht. And as you know, Yacht is our one collaborator in Italian side. We are especially organizing a very important design competition with also IKSV. And the winners will be rewarded as a semester design education in Yacht in Italy. So first of all, I would like to start with Carlo Branzaglia. And I would like to ask about his proficiency, his position in Yacht, and also the design strategy education in Yacht. Thank you very much.
Thank you to you, Pinar, and thank you for this invitation. I'm very glad to be here. You organized a lot of events during the Italian Design Day, after the Italian Design Day, so I know you have a very full week of events. Well, I am the scientific coordinator in the postgraduate area in IED Milan. Of course, I had a long experience in IED programs before being the scientific coordinator. And what I can say that the model, well, IED has been the first university level school based, dedicated on design in Italy. Actually, it has more than 50 years. So the first point was at the origin, the first point, the first touch point in IED was being very close to the company problems and cooperating a lot with companies, adopting the idea of learning by doing, of course. I mean, people has to learn how to deal with design, doing design, practicing in design. And that is our basic culture. On the other hand, of course, we have a comprehension of the design system in a very wide, with a very wide idea that is very similar to the British idea. I mean, there are courses in almost everything in IED, in ID. That means that we work about communication, visual arts, that means illustration and so on, product design, fashion design, and so on. My school, the area I belong to, the postgraduate area, joins all the different masters and program for professionals that deal with design. So we have, again, a large extension, a wide extension of programs from brand communication to digital strategy to graphic design, fashion design, animation, and so on. And well, our point is trying to adopt the design thinking methodology. That means more or less what if. I mean, what if means and what if I could do something better than before, trying to facilitate the capability of innovating in our students, trying them to make them dialogue continuously, and in particular in this specific moment in which COVID-19 affected a lot, of course, the organization of the programs, and we had to move on the web to develop our programs. Well, we had the possibility even to study some, evolution of the educational programs that are, really in touch with, I think, with the contemporary mood in design and design education. That's why I think that COVID-19, that is a terrible disease, of course, for everybody, but on the other hand, forced us to dialogue with some situations that were already present in our society. So, for example, of course, first and before all, moving on the remote, the remote contact. I mean, moving on the web to develop educational program, but respecting even the possibility that the online education education can give us. That means maintaining a stronger control of the processes, creating great network, dividing processes and project into steps, making people more aware of the responsibility they have in the single step, and creating clouds of people working on a project that can even disappear to create another cloud. That means another group of people working on another project. So this main idea of resilience, of flexibility, of clouding and so on, I think are quite typical in our design system, are typical in our world, in the world of production, and they had a strong acceleration because of COVID. And we are trying, of course, to exploit it to generate new way to educate our students.
So I think after the COVID disappears, we're gonna go on to use also this remote education system somehow, because it's really very clear that we can do something from far away. We don't need to use always face-to-face and close area. We can look from that side to see also the positive sides, for sure. Normally it's very attractive for all students, for especially design students, to come and have an education in Italy, of course. And it is very attractive university for all. But we have here two researchers in Turkey, two Italian researchers. I would like to start with Luca Orlandi, because he is living in Istanbul and he is making researches on Istanbul and Genoese part of Istanbul, I think, and especially on Sinan, architect Sinan. He has really good findings after his researches, and I would like to hear something about Istanbul, because in one of his interviews we heard a word like Istanbul. I think he likes Istanbul. Could you please share your opinions about Istanbul and your findings?
Herkese merhaba, iyi akşamlar. And, good evening to everyone. So it's a pleasure to be in this panel today and to share our experiences, let's say. I'm an architect, but of course I'm working mostly as architectural historians. And since many years, I'm living in Istanbul. So you're right, Pinar. I mean, I know quite well the matter, let's say. And I bring, let's say, my experience in Italy as well, in the sense that I studied some topics, my research and also for my PhD, for instance, related with the architect Sinan, and also related with the Genoese heritage here in Istanbul or in Turkey in general, that is not so well known in Italy. That is quite surprising. I mean, beside the Galata Tower, nobody knows, even in Genoa. I'm from Genoa myself, so even in my hometown, nobody knows too much about Galata, about the role of the Genoese in the trade in the Eastern Mediterranean, and how what was back then in the Byzantine Empire and in the Ottoman Empire later, what was the contribution of the Genoese community that actually led to give possibility to more and more foreigners to start to live in this part of the Mediterranean. And it's really, I was also quite surprised during my PhD. I did my PhD on Sinan, and I was quite surprised that even Sinan was not so well known in Italy, while he's one of the most, important architects, I would say not only Ottoman, but worldwide architects of the 16th century. So I moved, of course, I did also other kind of researches, but I moved mostly dealing with the architect Sinan and also with the Genoese heritage, exactly to spread also more knowledge in Italy, because we know something, but we don't know enough. So for me, it was instead very important to give an appreciation, let's say, of what you have here and what from here can be transferred in terms of knowledge to Italy back, in the case of the Genoese, and to make more awareness about the importance of Sinan and Ottoman architecture in general that in our studies, for instance, when I was a student, was not contemplated at all, no? Just maybe a couple of buildings, but not going too much in details and something like that. So for me, it's important to keep this link between Italy and Turkey. I'm working currently at Özyeğin University, but I work in several universities here in my past years here in Istanbul. And at the same time, I'm collaborating a lot with the Italian university. I mean, Polytechnics of Turin, Polytechnics of Milan, and School of Engineering and Architecture of Genoa, and some other institutions. So I'm kind of really like a sort of link between the two countries. And I like, of course, to create, let's say, cultural bridges between the countries. And I think that working on such kind of issues, for me as historian, basically, but I'm also an architect, even though I'm not practicing, but I'm teaching also design studio, whatever. But for me, the cultural bridges are very important. So insisting on something that can put in common these two reality. And we don't have to forget, in the case of the Genoese in the Middle Age, it was very important, Galata and the connections between the Genoese traders, whatever, and the Levant here, but also in the Renaissance periods. At the same time, it was very strong, the connection between, for instance, Sinan, Ottoman Empire, and Republic of Venice. So there were really, even in that period, many, many cultural encounters, let's say, in the Mediterranean. So I'm kind of quite proud to be here and working from this side and make, you know, spread more knowledge. For what is concerned, the other question you mentioned about Istanbul, actually the definition is not mine of Istanbul, even though I'm using a lot the definition, because it was, I think, 2007 or 2008, when for few years Istanbul was considered one of the coolest cities in the world. So there were on magazine, international magazine, and a lot of attention on Turkey. And I remember back then, 2007, there was a monographic issue of Abitare magazine, one of the worldwide well-known Italian magazine about architecture that was dedicated entirely to Istanbul. And I contribute with I wrote something on Sinan, of course, and it was really a great experience. So in that sense, I was kind of try to, and also in several interviews and other articles, try to describe the energy and the positive vibes that this city can generate. Even today, even if there are problems, even there were problems in the last years, and even especially now with this emergency, let's say, of the COVID, of course, but still, I mean, I consider the city has a lot to offer, and kind of, how can I say, infinite source if you want to search about something. I mean, you can find really many fields in which you can work on. Less, of course, in the last years. I have to say that maybe 2010, when Istanbul, so we talked already about 10 years ago, when it was the European capital of culture, it was really like fireworks. I mean, the city was really amazing. Now a bit undertone, I have to say, but at the same time, I'm still here. I have many colleagues. My university, for instance, we are working well on international projects. Whatever I can, I try to bring my Turkish students, for instance, to Italy to visit, especially Milan Furniture Fair during the Design Week. Of course, it couldn't happen this year, but we did in many occasions in the past years, or in the summertime, organizing summer school and take students to archaeological design experiences in Villa Adriana, close to Tivoli, close to Rome. Or maybe we went also several times to the Venice or Biennial of Architecture or Biennial of Art. So I'm trying to keep this link. For me, it's very important to keep, you know, alive, let's say, the cultural experiences in both the direction and creating, again, as I said before, bridges. That is what we need now, I mean, cultural bridges.
Yeah, that's
all. I mean,
sorry. Please go on.
No, please ask me something. I mean, I can talk.
I'd like to explain something because, as Professor Branzaglia mentioned, we extended this Italian Design Day Turkey. When you compare with the other countries, instead of making it one day, we are making it maybe 1 week, more than 40 panelists, more than 10 panels. Because, these bridges are so strong from the past and also to now. We get started with research about the architects, especially in 19th century, who built their designs in Istanbul, as you know, like Mongeri, Daronco, Semprini, Valori, and because of their wonderful, precious buildings, we were planning to make these panels in that Italian buildings. After that, we faced with this pandemic and we started to make it online. But we hope that we will make this Italian Design Day in the following years in these Italian buildings, face to face. And I'm sure that it will be so joyful.
It will be great.
It will be great, of course. So thank you. I mean, if you don't have anything, I will continue to listen to the other presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We can go on with Daniele. Because his design area is very excited for in these days. His proficiency is interactive design and also game design. We are, I'm an architect, he's a yacht designer, you are an architect, naval architect. But this field of design is really so excited because in these days it's so popular, it's so preferred, and it has no limit. So can you please share about your proficiencies, advantages and disadvantages, about this having infinitive area?
Okay. Well, thank you for inviting me. Hello, merhaba, buonasera. I mean, you were talking about bridges, so I would like to keep this concept of bridges and sort of transfer it to my field. Yes, as you said, like I've been working on interaction design. I'm graduated from UAB Venice on this field, so I kept and I was called here in Izmir to teach that. So obviously I'm very happy to continue to work on the field from here. And yes, in these days it's especially important because, I mean, obviously not being able to get together physically as we used to be before the explosion of the pandemic crisis pushed us to spend even more time in front of interfaces of any kind, especially like the one we are using today to speak instead of being in person. So how to create these bridges? I mean, interfaces, if you want, can be defined as bridges, right? They bring together two points. So like one important question, I think, I mean, I don't know if we can say that this field is, as you said, like it's infinite or limitless. I wouldn't say that. Maybe, I mean, it requires to be expanded, actually. I mean, I would say it requires so much more. I mean, especially in this condition. As a paradox, for example, like that I'm facing in these days, we used to teach also to the students to design interfaces for public space. That's one of the area that I've been working on in collaboration with local museums, in collaboration with the municipality, in collaboration with companies. And one of the problems that we face is that, especially when you design something for public spaces like that, I mean, today you cannot touch the same screen, or people at least will be rightfully skeptical about doing that. I mean, it's obviously a danger. So we are back to our individual separate devices, and also with the students. I mean, not only it's difficult for us designer on one side to design these kind of interfaces, but also for the student, because they cannot experiment following, as Professor Branzaglia was saying, the learning by doing approach. We used to let the student try large touch screen either in the school or when we do this collaboration outside the school. But now obviously that is not possible. So we have also to reframe and reframe from doing such projects. So even in a field that looks probably more limitless, as you said, as the one of
comparing to ours, let's say.
Sorry?
Comparing to ours,
yeah, maybe. But even that, you know, like you assume, you know, digital interfaces, what do you need? In the end, you have a mobile phone, you have a computer, you can work on it. Even in this area, it became more complicated in this condition of online teaching with COVID-19. So like that's one aspect that is relevant, let's say, in this day. And I'm really curious, actually. I'm really wondering how, when the crisis will end, I wouldn't say the end of the virus, because I think the virus will just stay with us, unfortunately. But when the crisis, at least, will be off, well, then I'm questioning if there can be this transition towards more public interfaces that can be much more interesting, and like they could be a bridge, a vehicle for bringing people back together as well. Because even before the pandemic, in context like metro or any other public space, in the end we are facing our smartphone and not really looking much at each other. So my interest before already was to work on public interfaces, so interaction that can involve multiple people in a physical context. So that is the area that actually I'm interested on, especially with my own research, and like in this condition, it is something that obviously it's forbidden, basically. So like it's interesting how that would be coming back, let's say, after the crisis. And in that sense, obviously, other researchers like me have been starting to look for alternatives, obviously, to what common you can find in, I don't know, mall or shops or museums, obviously, like touchscreen. So towards one trend that was already there, but obviously, I think increased in importance, which is the bring your own device sort of idea. So having your own device that does a double interface, let's say, so your own device interface with this public interface, so bringing people together but using their own individual devices. So that's something that we will probably face soon, and then waiting for, let's say, the next step, which would be to come back together. And regarding what Professor Orlandi was saying about the community as well, like the idea of creating communities through these public interfaces is very strong, and I hope it will be, you know, a sort of an answer, like finally we can get out of our houses, let's try to get out of also the phone, you know, like this screen idea, and maybe, since we will anyway use obviously all the technology that we need, and we come in contact constantly, how that can be improving our social life. I mean, even in these days, one thing that it is lacking, but it is an area of research, is exactly these interfaces that enhance local community. So in these days, it's important also just for many people to feel that there is somebody next door, you know, like not only, I mean, if you cannot reach them because you are in a quarantine, it's important to at least know that somebody else is there. So in that sense, interfaces become a necessity. So there is a lot of that, actually. There's a lot of possibilities and a lot of limits as well that we are facing, and this condition of pandemic is also influencing both in professional life and in education, obviously.
Okay. Thank you, Daniele.
Thank you. Thank you all.
I think Baran has a question.
Yes. I think you are very familiar with the VR technologies as you are into game industry. So do you work on something like on the VR, or do you have any plan for that?
Well, yes, we have been working actually in my university, in Yaşar University. I created 5 years ago, I suppose, a lab called X Lab, Interaction Lab, in which we push the students and we offer ourselves as researchers the possibility to conduct such experiment, and VR is one of the areas that we also work on. So like we have been adopting, let's say, that technology, yes, as you said, also in the game design field, but also for other more installation experiment also that students conduct for their graduation or in preparation to their graduation. So yes, VR is one of the area which I would say almost surprisingly is sort of neglected. I was expecting also to hear more about VR research during this period of isolation, you know, like, okay, we are isolating in one room, let's expand through virtual reality, but it wasn't really the case. I'm not also an extreme fan, I have to say personally, but obviously it's one of the areas that, you know, it's relevant, so we've been working on that as well. But I was just surprised that I at least personally, I mean, maybe I didn't conduct so much of the research in the recent months, but I was expecting to see more, let's say, considering that we are home and we are already isolated.
Yes, that's why I was thinking that VR technology will be like very part of our life, because because you cannot travel now, and maybe you can see the houses inside with the VR technology. You can walk around. You can go shopping with the VR technology. I don't know, but it will go further.
Sure. It will develop, definitely. No, one interesting project that you made me think of, for example, is what Google has been doing recently in England. I don't know if you heard that news, but they've been publishing British movies inside Google Map. So basically, you visit virtually the place, and you discover that there are movies projected around England. So like that is an interesting, for example, experiment on my, I mean, from my perspective at least. So that's something that I would like to see how it can also, you know, transform in the future. Yes, the way even how we perceive cinema, sort of, you know, like why do we have a cinema around the Google Map? It's a curious question, if not else.
So, thank you for your explanations.
Thank you.
We can go on with you, Baran.
Okay.
You have your bachelor degree in Turkey, and then you got your master's degree and PhD in Italy. So maybe you can give your opinions about the interactions on your education on design field.
Okay. Before I start the talk about this, I actually moved to, after my education in Turkey, I actually moved to San Francisco to study industrial design. That's why I know the Italian education system and American education system. And I can say that Italian education system is like giving you more vision. So actually Italian lifestyle is similar to Turkish lifestyle. It's, you're having a really nice time while you're studying. You don't feel like you're a foreign student or foreign people. So that's something very important. When you try to learn something, you have to concentrate. So this is one of the most important things, I think. So the second thing is I'm actually like Yacht student. I was Yacht student also. I study art design in Torino, but I think they changed the course right now. So I can say that the another good thing about this education style our instructors were real professionals from the field. So this is actually very important, and they have a very important experience they are sharing. So they are not like, you know, we are talking about the production, not just drawing, not just projects, yeah. Yes, not just digital image. So that's why you need to know about real life production materials, experiences, everything. So that was really good about that. And I'm also academician, you know, so I can say that university and the country is very important, but it's actually end up with in the student. So if you are the student has to take everything from their teacher. So that's the main point. So it doesn't actually, it is matter, the school, but if you are just listening and don't ask anything, you just learn some stuff, yes. But if you are asking all the time, if you are wondering what is how this built, what is the materials, so that's another thing is very important. And we are seeing this in our students actually. Some of them are just listening, but some of them are just asking so many questions. So we see the huge difference in their projects.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I would like to go on with Carlo Branzaglia. Can you hear us, Professor?
Here I am.
Okay. Since we are talking about this design quality of Yacht and Italy, I would like to ask to Professor Branzaglia, because Yacht has more than 10 branches in different countries. And since you have a high quality of education, how do you provide this sustainability on education? Because it should be really hard to collect all the good experienced instructors, of course. How do you provide this?
Yeah. I think that there is, well, one of the points that was touched before, the fact that many of our teachers, all our teachers are professional, is one of the main points again. And I think there are two main items, two main points that are, first, we always, I think that one of the distinguishing aspect of Italian design is the process. I mean, the quality of products, every kind of products, services, etc., but even education is a matter of processes. I mean, you have to take care of the process in order to get a good result. So that designing the process is something particularly important, even in the educational field. So having a structure, I mean, a basic structure, a common methodology is something that can help to maintain the output. I mean, the quality of the output in our educational system, in the education system of Yacht in particular. On the other hand, I think that another distinguishing point is that, well, of course, I mean, from the beginning, design has been a humanistic approach. I mean, it's not a science, it's not a discipline, I think. It's more related to people. I mean, we work for people, so it's a humanistic field, a humanistic discipline or something like that. I don't think it's a discipline, I think it's a tool, actually, or a toolkit. But anyway, it's related to people, so the importance of having, I kind of say naturally, a humanistic culture help a lot the role that the Italian design had all over the world. I mean, design is always and everywhere a humanistic discipline, a humanistic field. But actually, of course, our culture, our modern culture, our recent culture in Italy is based on humanistic studies. So the centrality of the man, I mean, the mankind, in relation with the world outside is something absolutely absolutely basic for the Italian humanistic culture. And I think that that change a little bit makes the difference, actually. Make the difference in terms not only of projection on the needs of the people we have to design object for, services for, but in terms also of style. I mean, meaning style as a form of expression of particular meanings. I mean, that can be a social environment or a physical environment. Traducing it in an interface, actually, because design is a matter of interface, just mentioning what Daniele was saying. I mean, all the design stuff are interfaces that make aware people of the world and the relationship that we establish with the world outside. So objects are part of our cultural anthropology, let's say, and they are a bridge between our mental and physical aspect and the function we want to respect and we want to the goal we want to reach.
Thank you very much. And I would like to ask another question to you. Okay, there is no word to say anything about Italian design skill, of course. From our side, for example, we are trying to feed ourselves with other cultures because design is fed by other cultures and other mentalities. Since it has a universal language, it has a way to tell about itself by no words, but it's fed by different cultures. So we are trying, as an instructor also, I'm an academician, I'm trying to feed my students also from different cultures designs. What about Italians? Are you also feeding your design education with other cultures? I mean, do you have instructors from other countries or only Italians in Yacht?
No, we have people coming from everywhere, even because Milan is quite an international city, so there are many designers that were based or trained or born in other part of the world and that are now living in Milan and teaching in Yacht. And then, of course, being an international network facilitates the relationship with other countries, so at least Spain and Brazil, the two countries in which we have other branches. On the other hand, we have we have teachers that work for international companies, so they have a global experience and they can share, because the world has changed so much that it's necessary to figure out how a young designer can move. I mean, with taking care of the fact that perception of object, culture, countries are very different all around the world. But another point I think is that we are trying to give the idea that the designer is a sort of facilitator among culture and disciplines. It can be local culture or disciplines as well. So I was talking about anthropology because in effect anthropology is quite interesting for designers so far because it's a science of humankind, so it can explain us how does it work. Or psychology maybe is quite interesting because in this particular moment our psychological aspect is quite affected by the transitory situation in which we live because of the COVID-19. So I think that the most important thing we can do is really understanding that design is a bridge, is a tool that can facilitate the relationship between different activity. It was always like that because actually a product designer has to work with marketing man, with the commercial area of a company or with the technological area of a company. So designers always facilitated the relationship among the different areas inside the company. In this very moment, probably designers have a further role, a higher challenge that is even facilitating the evolution of our society. And that is quite important, of course, and needs to understand that there are different ways to interpret the world. There are different cultures, there are different religions, there are different way of life, and it's the only possibility we have is to dialogue through the things we produce through the interface we produce to communicate and to relate with the world outside.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Branzaglia. I would like to ask Luca Orlandi that, because you are making some researches also on heritage and ruins of architecture, urban ruins. So maybe you can share your ideas about these interactions between Turkish and Italian architecture style. Do you think that there are some interactions between them? For sure from one side, but also Turkish architecture language has another way of building. So did you find some common ways, that some interaction between these two cultures?
I didn't understand if you want to mean in today words, I mean in the contemporary words, or historically? I mean, because it's
actually historically, yes, they are in historically.
Yeah, because I mean, when we talk about contemporary world, you know, today it's very difficult to say where an architect belongs to, no?
Yeah, of course.
Or a designer. I mean, you can be from China, work in Italy, and then move to America, or be Turkish, go and study yacht design in Genoa, and then maybe work in Russia.
It was easier.
Yeah. But I have to say, talking about the past, it's quite interesting because I dedicate some studies also relations, for instance, Sinan's period and Italian Renaissance. And it's quite interesting that there are more points of contacts. We used to think that Renaissance was just a product of Italy, but actually was a product of Italy, but in relation with the neighborhoods, let's say. So in that case, for instance, the contribution, somehow, we don't know exactly, of course, but we had some clues that in that period, there were more contacts between Republic of Venice and Ottoman Empire, even if they were enemies, they were at war. I can give you one example that some researchers pointed out when we had a good, there was in 2010, again for European Capital of Culture, there was this big exhibition, Sinan meets Palladio in Istanbul. And of course, they lived more or less in the same period. Sinan was, of course, the acclaimed, let's say, most well-known architect of the Ottoman Empire, as well as Palladio was one of the greatest architects of the Italian Renaissance. And curiously, there were some people creating contact with them, not physically. They never met probably, okay. But Ballio, I mean, the ambassador of Venice back then, Marcantonio Barbaro, was the sponsor of Palladio in Venice. But at the same time, he was working here as an ambassador, so dealing with the sultans, dealing with the Grand Vizier, deal with all the personalities, and among which also Sinan. So he visited Sinan's, let's say, building sites in Edirne or in some places related with the Grand Vizier, Sokollu Mehmet Pasha. So it's quite interesting, those kind of relations. And of course, when we talk instead the 19th century, 19th, 20th century, let's say late Ottoman Empire, we have also a great exchange of architects moving back and forth. And you know, there was a strong Italian, let's say Levantine community that actually were architects born here, that they has nothing to do with Italy, but somehow they were related to, so they were in contact with people coming from Italy, coming from different cities, different geography, let's say, and producing here. So there are many, many points of contact that are very interesting to study. I have to say, in modernity is a bit different because Turkey then took another history, completely different, Italy as well. So there was still a presence here, for instance, of Italians, but not as it was in the past. And of course, Mediterranean also lost his centrality in the world economy, while for centuries, at least up to 16th, 17th century, let's say the center of the world economy was the Mediterranean, after switch to other countries, after Great Britain or other big powers extended their power, let's say, or their economies in other parts of the world. So I think it's quite interesting because what we have and what we need to protect, in this case here in Istanbul, it's an incredible cosmopolitan, kaleidoscopic heritage that comes from many, many contributions, but especially Italians, or let's say Italian-rooted. That unfortunately is a bit neglected here. We have to work on that. It's one of my struggle here, also to kind of enhance the quality of that cosmopolitan world. I mean, try to find out, you know, how we can preserve and give a cultural continuity to those masterpieces, let's say. That's what I want to say.
Because of all that information, it will be a really joyful tour when we see also Italian buildings in Istanbul, especially in Cihangir and in Istiklal. Thank you so much.
You know, Pinar, I used to do a lot of tour
as a
guide for some, let's say, institutions. And there is, for instance, this Levantine Heritage Foundation. And usually I was guiding all the tours around the, you know, Galata, Beyoğlu, and all the areas in which those presence was very strong in the past.
We would like to join as soon as possible, because I think in these days, especially after during this pandemic, we're gonna find some new interests, especially in open areas, some open public areas.
We should do.
Yeah,
we should do some work.
Really, it will be so important, and all the closed, published, let's say, interests will lose popularity, I think. So maybe we can go on with Daniele. And again, I would like to extend this open public spaces, interactive designs, because Daniele, you know also Istanbul, and you know now Izmir, and you also know Italian public space use. So I'm really interested in these days that how we will spend our times in open public areas for the future. What you guess about for the future? Do you have some predictions about it?
I guess yes, but no more than that. Well, the public spaces are definitely different. I mean, I don't know, I can't say that I know much Istanbul. I've been just visiting, but no more than that. I know a bit more Izmir, obviously, and Italy. And there is clearly a deep difference, which probably architects would explore more in depth that I can do, but definitely the perception of public space is different. I mean, for just the specific way in which the urban space is it's shaped. From my perspective, obviously the fact that yes, we are for now at least limited, let's say, in the space of our house, obviously, yes, navigating the public space, navigating even heritage. I mean, now Professor Orlandi was mentioning the heritage, and it made me think also about the role of, since we opened also the subject of gaming and video games, like how video games can make also us do other things. So there is a famous series of video games that are now reproducing entire cities. And like, I know also friends that visited Venice for the first time, but after playing certain games, they could orientate themselves because the reconstruction in the video games were so high fidelity that actually they could recognize the building and really move around the space. So that is an infinite maybe possibility there. So like maybe it could be interesting to imagine such a work on Istanbul and Italian heritage or Italian related heritage there. But yes, regarding the public space, so like on one side, we might remotely navigate the space, but when yes, the crisis will fade, it's really a question on how we will reconquer the space, if it will go back to this supposed to be normal, or people will maintain a trail of, let's say, diffidence towards the public, towards the the other people. Also because, as some people say, this could be just the first of the pandemic. I mean, we have been sort of accustomed not to have new viruses, but probably that can be also something belonging to the past. So obviously it's a big question mark that we will need to discover. But yes, also, I mean, in the public space, that's also something that interested me in the past. So the role of how we can engage with people and what else, let's say, we can do socially and through interfaces, through interactive artifacts. So in that sense, like it's similar what can be probably produced here or in Italy, but at the same time, because of the culture, as also Professor Branzaglia was saying, designers, and in terms of also education, we need to acknowledge actually the context of whatever we design or we educate students to design for, so like, or with, because that's also another aspect of our work. I mean, designing with people, encouraging the social aspect. I believe, and that's one of my, let's say, battle in my field, that the devices that we are using are often, too often, individualistic. So trying to break that limit to me is one of the biggest challenge, and maybe that could be really a great surprise, let's say, of this crisis, that maybe we will need to find new ways and we will discover interesting way of interacting with each other, socially engaged, and still have these technologies, because it's obvious that we will not abandon anything, but maybe improve it in a more social way. So that would be really like an interesting thing, and gaming could be one of the areas that can stimulate that.
So much for your ideas. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we hope that these interactions on also international events will increase our interactivity in also our social lives.
These are two effects actually in this time, negative and positive effects. If we are talking about the negative effects, the events are cancelled, the events are postponed. So people couldn't go to the award ceremonies, and you know, this is a very, very bad situation. It was a bad situation. But on the other hand, if we are talking about the positive situation, people locked down, while lockdown, people had more time to think, more time to design, and more time to present their work to the world, I can say that. So I believe this year many people joined the competitions. So these competitions is actually the bridges, you know, the bridges we were talking about. So they are mixing people, they are connecting people together. So many projects joined the competition. It was a good thing, but the events cancelled. It was a bad thing. So, you know, I mean, I think it will be a positive effect like next year.
We hope so.
Yes.
We hope that we will make all this organization for 2020 face-to-face. And I would like to thank to everybody, Carlo Branzaglia from Yacht, Luca Orlandi from Cihangir, Daniele Savasta from İzmir, and Baran Akalın from Istanbul. And especially I would like to thank to Galata Port Istanbul, our sponsor of venue, and hope to see you face-to-face on next year. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Ciao.
Ciao.
Bye-bye. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.